apologize for the delay. First on the agenda is RRFACF. We continue to take a very hard look at the secret process, which is an ongoing process. We're making progress, but we still need some more time with this, and before we can distribute anything as part of the record. So I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this application, 560 Wickapog Road, to our next meeting in 2 weeks on August the 18th, correct? Yeah. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is Diamond Communications, 25 Windmill Lane. Alex, I understand that they want to adjourn that, or?
Yes, so that application is going to be heard this Thursday at the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay.
This board already adopted the secret determination,
Yep.
so you may want to adjourn this to your following meeting for continuation of the site plan review.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to adjourn Diamond Communications, 25 Windmill Lane, to our next meeting, August 18th.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Can you just vote orally?
Say-
Don't just raise your hands if you could actually say aye or
Aye.
yes.
Aye.
Do you
Thank
want
you.
us to do it in tune or?
Oh,
or
three-part
in
harmony.
harmony, three-part harmony? We
Harmony.
we'll rehearse that for our next meeting. 71 Hill Street.
Yeah. I'm John Bennett, the applicant. Judy Godheld is here, Terry Moan, Eddie Moan, John David Rose, Scott Rose, and Bailey Larkin from my office. The applicant is proposing to demolish an existing commercial building and construct a 2.5-story building with 40 resort hotel suites, in addition to 8 workforce housing units. The Board of Trustees granted special exception approval on February 13th, coordinated secret review. A copy of the Board of Trustees resolution, including the negative declaration, was filed with the application. The ZBA on July 3rd, 2025, granted area variance relief for the lot width to building width ratio and for 2 compact parking spaces and a special exception permit to construct the pool. The ZBA application was filed with the board on July 7th. Last week, the Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation approved the proposed architectural plans. At the request of your consultant, we provided an updated site plan provided by Squires and Holden that shows the location of the components for the proposed sewage treatment plant and demonstrates that the STP will in no way impact the proposed drainage system. This is the sort of thing that I don't even begin to know how to react to. I get handed the night of the meeting a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-page memo. This is no way to treat an applicant. I have been proceeding in good faith with this. This is 8 units of workforce housing that we're trying to bring online. I'm trying to get, as you can imagine, we have all the other approvals set up. As you can imagine, this project also requires negotiations with amongst other people, people providing for the finance. I simply don't understand why I get the night of the meeting a memo dated August 1st, and it gets handed to me a 6-page memo, some of which stuff is beyond minutia and contrary, and is also, the consultants trying to interject themselves in a health department scenario, health department approval. So what I'm going to ask, because we have had 4 meetings before the Board of Trustees, we've been before the Zoning Board of Appeals, that was granted after 1 meeting. We've been 2 meetings before the Architectural Review Board. I'm not going to bore everybody with going through this, which I should have had a week ago, so that I could have had an intelligent, informed discussion with you. But I am, since we've had all those public hearings, going to ask you to close the public hearing, which is, the public hearings are for the purposes of input from the public. There's been 1 speaker, and it was Jay Deasing, who talked about connecting the Vradian Way with the public access way to the north. Regarding cross-access, I've said in the letter, tell us where you want us to put it. That's all. That's totally within your jurisdiction. We're not going to weigh in where it's going to go. We don't think it's a good idea, but you'll tell us where, in conjunction with the next door neighbor, the movie theater, you want us to put it. But these are site plan issues that do not affect the public input. There have been 4 hearings with 1 speaker to the various boards. So I'm going to ask you to close this, because a public hearing is for the public to come in and give you any comments. No one, after 4 hearings before the Board of Trustees, 1 speaker, 2 hearings before the ARB, and 1 hearing before the Zoning Board of Appeals. So we can work all these things out. I don't agree with everything, but I'm not going to spend everyone's time while I try to read through a 6-page memo given to me at the night of the hearing. But I'll ask you to close the public hearing. And you can, the access point, you're going to tell, presumably your other site plan, the site plan with the movie, gives you the flexibility to put it where you want to. Tell us where you want to put the public coordinated access. It hasn't even been, there hasn't even been any public comment on that. I mean, other than the back and forth between the board and both applicants. I simply don't understand being handed it. It's an insult to the applicant. He's worked hard here and is trying, not only, there's a significant public benefit aspect of this project. And the trustees are very supportive of it. It's going to bring online 8 workforce housing units. We've got to get this stuff teed up. I'd like you to close the public hearing. We can work out all the other stuff.
Anything
I don't
else?
think I have a copy of what Mr. Bennett's referring to.
It's in-
I have not gotten it. I looked at my file, all the things.
Well, I've got it 5 minutes ago.
So I really don't know. I'd like to see it, if I might.
You should have it in front of you.
But given this has just appeared in today, this minute before the meeting, not online, I think. So let me see.
Wasn't in the Dropbox, right?
It was today when we were.
When did you put it in the Dropbox, Alex?
As soon as it was distributed
It
to
was
the board
dated
members
August
today.
1st. When did you put it in the Dropbox?
Today.
Today. Thanks, Alex. Thanks for working with me.
All right, let's,
See.
anything else on this? And we can
I'd like someone
respond.
to acknowledge the fact that this is not the way, this is not a good procedure.
All right. John, appreciate your comments and understand a couple of things. On the cross-access, I don't think it's up to the planning board to determine where
Yes,
to
it
put
is.
cross-access.
It
You need
is.
to make a proposal to
Understand something. I think it's a liability, and so I'm not going to be part of the design of it. You can tell me where you want me to put it.
Neither are we, all right? So
Okay.
we can sit here and go back and forth.
You're not going to
But
get
we're
me.
not gonna
You're not going to
tell-
get. You're not going to get me. And
Okay.
you're going to have to speak to council about this. You want the public. You want the cross access. You'll have to speak to council off the record. Obviously, I'm not suggesting that I wouldn't put Alice on the spot. I think it's a liability. I
Okay.
think it's a hazard. However, you want it. The trustees want it. Tell me where to put it.
No?
I'm not going to own
you-
any of that.
All right, then we're going to leave the hearing open on this and continue this to the next.
For what
meeting.
purpose?
We're not going
Hearing
any
open.
further.
For what purpose?
First of all, I'm not going to start the clock ticking on an approval of this, which closing the hearing does, number one. Number two, I just told you, until we see a proposal that has your agreement and the next door neighbors of cross-access.
You're not getting it from me
Okay.
because I am not going to be sued when somebody gets run over in
Okay.
that parking lot because you guys decided to have a cross-access between these two uses.
Okay.
And by the way, all the trustees' permit says is that there has to be cross-access. It's up to you. You
All
tell
right.
me. You're the planning board. You tell me where you want to put it.
Alice, can we just leave this open until they get us what we're asking for?
Yes, and I think you should with this many open issues.
Okay, then.
Over my
Then-
esteemed objection.
then,
What do you want to say?
Then we're gonna,
Dee Dee Godhelf, 47 East 87th Street, New York, New York, 91 Hill Street. I'm the managing member. I've been here for 10 years now. Last time we went through this, we had a wonderful linear building. It was the planning board that said, the building is too long, even though it's 90% of the road frontage per the zoning requirements. We made 2 perpendicular buildings with a pool in the middle. Planning board approved it because I said, fine, if this is what you want, it wasn't my preference, but it's what you would like. Now we're back 10 years later, 8 workforce housing units and $900,000 of annual revenue to our village of Southampton because we have day people coming in. There's nowhere for them to sleep. It would be lovely to be able to get this so-called first-class, super wonderful addition to our tourism because we are a resort tourism town. The idea that we have a memo, I haven't seen it either. And we're just wasting time, we're wasting money. We wrote immediately following the last meeting when I read 2 letters to you that there is no place that it's safe. We cannot solve the traffic issue. It's on the front page of this week's paper and every other paper. It's a very large problem for the East End. The hotel has the least number of parking and car vehicular points that we could possibly have. The other alternative is fixing up what we have now. We will have retail and we will have commercial and cars will go in and out. It's okay, you know, if that's what we really want. I'm trying desperately to hold this together, but for 10 years, no more. Can somebody please explain, because we're back to this iterative process, there is nowhere per the language that the applicant and applicant's attorney feels it is safe to have cross-access between these 2 properties. It will not ameliorate the traffic situation. As it is now, traffic coming out of movie theater, the intersection of First Neck Lane and Hill Street and Viridian Lane is not wonderful. There was an accident there during this past week. Can somebody explain to us, because again, we're like, I feel like I'm negotiating with myself. Why and for what purpose will the cross-access, other than being in the record?
We're past that because we've offered to do the cross-access.
But we need help.
What I'm saying, however, I am not going to have my client incur liability by being the author of that. And it seems to me that you're hesitant too. So where are we? Because you know something, when there's a poor roadway design, I don't know if you folks are aware of this, but when there's a poor roadway design and there's an accident or there's a fatality or something like that, guess who gets sued in addition to the drivers? The municipality for maintaining it and keeping it that way. So I'm not going to be an author of something that we think is absolutely inherently dangerous. However, we are bound by the trustees' condition, and you want to see it. Okay, tell us where you want to put it.
Okay, well.
I have a question.
Yeah,
The last time we discussed this, there's definitely support for the fact that several of the people on this board expressed agreement that there was no safe solution, but we're told later that the Board of Trustees required it. It was a pre-negotiated situation. So why wouldn't they and their traffic consultants then be the ones to come up with this plan?
Because they left it in your lap.
Alex, can you shed some light on this?
So the trustees required that as a condition of approval because they felt that it was important for the permit that they granted. But they left it to be approved as part of the site plan proposed by the applicant because they wanted there to be flexibility.
Well, it didn't say part of the site plan proposed by the applicant. It said that there must be one. So we came in here, we talked about it, we talked about maybe getting some support from the board. Some of the board members felt yes, some of the board members felt no. It's getting some support for going back to the trustees and asking them to remove that condition. I get the sense that the majority of the board is not comfortable with that. So here we are, and we've said, okay, tell us where you want the cross-access.
Great, appreciate your comments. Understand if you want to move this forward, we need a site plan that shows cross-access before we can move this forward.
Okay,
When we get that,
I'm not going
then
to
we're-
tell you
then
where
we're
to
prepared.
put an
And
access.
If the ball, excuse me, please, just 1 second. The ball is in your court, okay?
But
When
it
you-
can't be.
When you
It's-
get us this information, I'm happy.
This is a
we are happy
Sisyphean
to
task
push
because
this
we
application
cannot,
along.
Okay, so what we're really saying after 10 years at this point in time, there is no project because the requirement is we can put it wherever we want. The movie theater will put it, there is no agreed safe access between the two properties. We went to them, we did everything that you had asked. We got a letter from Jack Heller. They do not want vehicular cross-traffic. We do want pedestrian cross-traffic. We could put something in.
This ship has sailed, right?
Okay, so
Cross-access
so we're
is a
pulling the project now?
requirement of the
Is that?
trustees of the village. So show us a site plan with cross-access, and we
But
can
it will
start
not
to
be
move this forward.
received on the other side.
Well, you've got to work that out. You mean the other
Okay,
side
so
with the
I
movie
think-
theater?
No. I'm going to tell you something right
Okay,
now.
I'm-
Hold on, I've been doing this for such a long time, and I'll tell you, every single time I've done a project with cross-access up and down County Road 39, up and down 27, the planning board told us where they wanted it. We didn't suggest where it was, because it's always typically begrudgingly given. But it's always the planning board that says, so this concept that I'm supposed to tell you, the planning board, where cross-access is going to be, makes no sense, because you're the planning board. You're supposed to tell us. So I have to wonder why there's the hesitance on your point to tell us where it is.
There's no hesitance. We need cross-access
Okay.
somewhere between the dumpster
So
on the
tell us
south
where it
end
is.
and the property line on the north end.
All right. I think you should
Can-
adjourn
do
and
you wanna
off the
add
record,
anything?
speak to your, go ahead.
Can I just say something?
Can you tell me?
My name is Terrence Moan. I'm the project director for the development of 91 Hill Street. The resolution from the 71 Hill, the resolution from the town trustees says that we have to have a cross easement meeting all these conditions. One of them is to reduce traffic hazards. Both we and the adjacent owner have said that this will increase traffic hazards. So therefore, it's a condition that cannot be met, right? And so, so we cannot comply.
The agreement that the chairman and I have, I really have to cut through all this. The agreement that the chairman and I have is that we have to provide it because there's a condition of the approval of the trustees on that. It does not say where. Our disagreement is the fact that it is your job as the planning board to direct where cross-access should occur. It is your job. But please, don't put your counsel on the spot. It is your job. That's the sort of decision that I think requires research and consideration, of which I've been more than happy to interface with your counsel about. But I don't think, if I may, it's fair to ask her to give you that determination now. I will tell you that I feel absolutely certain that your job as a planning board, like every other thing.
Can you speak in front of the microphone,
Where
John,
the
please?
cross-access should be. Because you're the one who's supposed to direct where these sites should be coordinated. But again, that's my position. And I think that you should think about it and and consider what I'm saying. That's all.
Okay. Alice, any,
I
Would
have
you like to say anything?
questions. I have questions. Where was, there was a site plan approved for the neighboring lot, correct?
yes,
With cross-access?
yes,
Should it line up with this lot?
one would think.
Okay, so, well, that's where we'll put it if you want us to put it there, at your direction.
I mean, so the code says that the planning board shall, to the
Shall.
maximum extent possible and where practical, require cross-access to adjacent properties. Since it's already been approved on the adjacent property,
The
it's-
discussion we had with the adjacent property was, they showed us, we said, that's fine with us, but as I recall, we said, that may change exact position depending on how this, and we can revisit that. I mean, I recall having that discussion when
Where's
we
it
were doing
going?
the theater, depending on making it work for both parties here, but there had to be cross-access somewhere between the dumpster and the north, on the
That's not
south.
the argument, Mark. The argument is it is your charge to tell us where it's supposed to be.
John, I understand that's your view, right?
It's not my view. That's what the law says.
Yeah, well.
Shall. It doesn't say shall. It doesn't say leave it up to the
I
applicant.
get my
It says
legal
shall.
advice from our counsel.
Well,
Okay.
it says
Not
shall
opposing counsel.
require. It doesn't say shall
Shall
dictate
place it,
location
right.
of.
You can't force me to design a cross-access that I feel is unsafe. However, I'm telling you, if you tell me where it is, where you would like it, which presumably is so it meets up with the movie theater, if you're telling me, direct me to put it there, that's where we'll put it. Seems like a silly standoff when it's your job to instruct. If I wanted to put it somewhere else, you could say to me, no, you can't. If I wanted to put it at the northerly end of the building, you would say, no, can't go there, because that doesn't make sense, because the cross-access is down, that the movie theater is provided, the area has provided, is much further to the south. So tell me,
I seem to recall
ask
the
me
movie
that,
theater was
do you
happy
or
to
do
put
you
it
not have the
anywhere
right
on
to
that
tell me where to put the
line when we did
cross-access,
that
because I'll put it up in the
approval.
north.
They just showed it
I mean, it's
there
just
for
crazy.
the purposes
I've
of
never heard a planning
facilitating
board say,
approval.
you tell me where you want the cross-access, when we're charged under the statute with trying to provide cross-access.
With requiring
The board
cross-access.
is. So please, I think we should have some consideration about where this comes out. And I think it should be done in a way that's studied and informed and researched.
When, though, if we have to go back and...
Well, Dee Dee, we're not going to get through this tonight. We have a 7-page memo, which again is just, it's just a total middle finger to the applicant. But then we're going to work through this stuff, and hopefully we'll see you in September.
Sounds
But
good.
this is not right.
If I can speak for a moment on the memo, we received on July 21st a revised site plan. Many of the comments reflected in the memo were actually already included in the original memo that was written months ago, but the site plan hasn't been amended to reflect them. But this time at the last planning board meeting, the board did request that I have the civil engineer review the site plan and provides engineering comments. So that's what this site plan review does. For the board's benefit, the memo's been directed to the board to look at and consider the requirements. Some of them outline what the code specifically says, as well as some recommendations, including that the site plan be put on multiple sheets so it can be legible, with separate sheets for things like grading and drainage. It has, various details about incorrect calculations on drainage areas and information that's required. They're very technical, largely very technical requirements related to the engineering of the site plan and the requirements of the site plan application. I think that engineer did a great job reviewing it within the 2-week timeframe. It is challenging to get, this is a detailed analysis of the code and the engineering requirements of the site. It's not a light memo with flippant comments in it. Nor is it insurmountable. These are things that an engineer can address in the site plan, and I think will make a more effective plan overall, with proper handicap ramps, with information on curb cuts, all the rest that's in here. There were a few notes that were just highlighted, particularly the one for the need for functional vehicular and pedestrian cross-access that has to be agreed on by the board and designed and demonstrated on the plan. This includes information on how it connects to the other site, because without knowing that, it's not possible to truly evaluate if the cross-access is functional. This was a same comment that was previously made and has been discussed multiple times. And we're obviously caught in a little bit of a loop on who's going to determine where that cross-access is going to be. But one way or the other, it has to be agreed with this applicant, the neighbor, and the planning board. And at this point, it is required by the special exception permit that the Board of Trustees has directed this be part of the site plan process. I did highlight too an issue which somehow is I came up in the last review, that there was not going to be permeable pavement provided. I highlighted this because it does say in the VB district within the code that it is required. It says it shall be provided. My understanding is that means it's not an optional addition, and I've highlighted that for your review and also for the council to look at to see if that is the proper interpretation of that line of the code. As far as the sewage treatment plan, made very clear in this memo that we don't We understand that the Suffolk County Department of Health Services is the one that ultimately has the review authority on the sewage treatment design and plan. We did need to know where those leaching fields were going to be placed because it was not possible to evaluate the functionality of the site drainage without knowing where those leaching fields were. In the revised plan, it did actually relocate site drainage because it showed the placement of the fields, which was now in the parking lot. I don't believe the plan as designed will require variances for the Suffolk County Department of Health Services, but
You do or you
that
don't?
is up to, I said, it will require variances
What variances?
for the setbacks for the sewage treatment plant. But that's fine, that's their purview to decide on. I'm not trying to evaluate the STP site, but we did need information on that for the ability to evaluate the additional design elements. That information was added to the plan that was uploaded on July 21st. So if you have any questions on that, I'm happy to answer them for you, Mark, or other board members.
No, that's good. Thank you, Lisa.
Well, you know how I've, for years, handled, at this stage in a site plan review, you approve the site plan subject to final engineering review. This is just, you don't hold a public hearing open when all the public have spoken, unless there's a misunderstanding, I'm sorry, but that's what it is, unless there's a misunderstanding of the function of a public hearing for a site plan. The function of a public hearing for a site plan, similar to the subject for a public hearing for a subdivision review, is to provide public input. You have had plenty of public input. If you are concerned about being under some sort of gun on that, I can't remember the last time a planning board member, a planning board counsel, or staff called me up and asked me for an adjournment in 40-some-odd years of doing this, since 1982, when I said sure, because nobody wants to be the one who tells the staff member that then they're not going to give them an adjournment. So, if you're worried about being under the gun, don't worry about it. But I have to get this. There's no reason to keep this public hearing open. None. Zero.
Okay. Anything else?
It sounds like Mr. Bennett is agreeing to extend, if necessary, the time for a decision, which is a very helpful element. Given that I'm new to the board and I am new to this project, I'm not going to tell you whether or not you should close the public hearing, but that certainly mitigates a lot of my concerns.
Okay. Any comments on that, Bill?
No, but I think that's very helpful, I think.
Well, let me see if we can get some agreement on the public hearing. That's all.
Do you think it's possible to digest this memo and address everything in it between now and the 18th
Of,
August?
well, I won't be here, so I would like a little bit more time. When's this, September?
Well,
meeting?
so what I'd like to do is leave the hearing open till the 18th, right?
Okay.
To give everybody time to collect their
I may
thoughts
or
on
may
these
not-
issues.
And I may or may not ask for an adjournment because
Okay.
I'll actually be.
And then, based on your generous offer to waive the
Well,
clock.
what I'm going
to reset the
to say
clock.
about that is, I'm just being very, reasonable, request for adjournment. It's not like I'm going to give you 5 years to approve the thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, and we're not asking for that, right? But I
understand.
just don't want
That's-
to, we
listen,
just don't want to
We can all
have
be good faith, operate in good faith.
we don't want to have a gun to our head
Yeah,
on that one.
I understand.
If all the i's aren't dotted and t's crossed on this.
Yep,
So,
that's fine. But I do need a faster turnaround than this. My engineer goes through this stuff very, very quickly. And, your engineer and your planning consultant are not
John,
public.
if we got it-
They're independent contractors, so
Yeah, if we got it on the
this
21st.
is unacceptable.
If we got it on the 21st, if the engineer
That's
got it on the
more than enough
21st,
time.
that's.
I'm not going to cry over somebody who's got only, 2 weeks to review a site plan where they've seen the bulk of it for months and months and months.
Well, all right.
I've been in the business long enough to know that that's more than enough time.
I will also note that some of the comments are still not addressed from the original memos, so
Right. So, look, I don't want to go back. We're just,
Yeah,
we've
we're
where we
covered
need
this
to be, I
think, yeah,
territory,
yeah, I think
right?
we-
So.
as well
what
as
I-
we can
What
do
I
at
would
this point.
propose, and I think, do I need a motion to hold the public hearing open
Well-
until the next meeting, right?
Okay, I thought
Just
And
do it.
then-
I motion to
just-
adjourn.
made a
and then,
representation about that that
motion
everyone
to
was comfortable
adjourn
with.
also, Alex?
Excuse me, I
Yeah.
thought I just made a representation to you that you were comfortable with. If you're
Yeah,
not gonna,
but-
if you're gonna say. Certainly.
We've never talked about if they are interested in planting, building, deciding anything other than.
No. We're gonna come back on all of this stuff.
We have a full team, we have people, we're not paying people to be on Zoom right now. Can we address anything here subject to?
Certainly,
So that we don't
certainly.
keep coming back to.
Is there anything other than in this memo that the board would like to talk about?
It sounds, did you read the memo?
Yes.
Have you, but you haven't.
No, it wasn't in the
Right.
file, it
So
wasn't anywhere.
I read it
so-
this afternoon, right? I don't,
This one that we just got?
the one that you
Yeah,
just
yeah,
got.
with-
But were there other site plan issues? Because it sounds like they've got all of their people here and can answer any questions about the buildings or the sidewalks or the stairs or anything
look,
else.
The only site plan issues that I have, and I'm not going to speak for anyone here, is cross-access, which I'm not going to reopen that, right?
Understand, yeah.
And a multi-page plan. The plan that we have, the site plan is very dense, and even when I blow it up 300% on my screen, it's very hard to, so.
This is Bob Smith's plan.
Yeah, so to get a multi-page plan that doesn't have so much information crowded onto it that you can actually read, it's a little
It's
bit.
not our plan, but we can certainly.
Yeah, so that would be really helpful to provide a review. Other than, and the part that I'm most focused on is the part that faces Hill Street and just what's going on with the sidewalks there and the walkway up and the patio and walkway between the two buildings that are being preserved to the east of the clock tower that's being removed. It was just very hard to see what was going on in there. And we'd like to, because so much of that existing structure is being preserved, right? We just want to fully understand that. The rest of it was a little challenging to review because it's so information dense. So I'm not saying that we won't have other comments when we see a multi-page plan that's a little clearer to wade through, but that's all I saw.
I comment for a moment, because I've not seen the 7-page document, but you touched on something that I have to question. Impervious parking.
Makes no sense. And you have the plenary authority to waive it.
I've never seen an impervious public parking lot with stripes and sidewalks that gets plowed in the winter.
It's impossible.
I don't, to the best of my knowledge, don't think it exists, yet it shows up on this document. Anyone? That's gravel or grass in concrete pavers, which,
And
I'm
it
not
doesn't
an
make any- if
impervious
you're-
expert, but
if
I
you're-
understand
if-
there is impervious
Yeah,
asphalt.
and if there's a wetlands near in the area,
I've never heard of it.
I could understand it, but this
That's
is,
right
makes no
here.
sense at all.
Well, look, then tell us.
I haven't seen the document yet, but
Yeah,
that
okay.
was just brought up.
We'll
Why don't- why don't-
And I'm
yeah.
open to it if it exists, but I've
No. No.
I'm gonna look at that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've asked Alice to look at the section of the code. There's a very specific section for the village, for the village business district specifically that says permeable pavement shall be used for all alleyways and parking areas. And that's exactly verbatim how it reads. So I would love her interpretation of how that can be.
Yeah,
That
so let's, again, on that one, it's a good question. Let's get Alice's interpretation and we can revisit that one, right?
But so.
Those are the only two things I saw.
At first, you understand my offer of not holding you to a time clock if you were gonna close the public hearing tonight was based upon you close the public hearing tonight. If you're not, then we're just gonna be left with the statute, because once you close the public hearing, I'll hold you to the time clock. I mean, I thought I was being, I thought that's what your counsel explained to you.
So I want to see how much progress we make on this, the items outlined in this memo, because Lisa's right. There's some things that have been identified that we've continued to ask for, so I'm not going to shut that down early. Right? And you got to get us, John,
Let me explain to
please.
you, you're not shutting anything down. You're
John.
not giving an approval. You're not signing off on engineering plans. You're not signing off on drainage plans. You're not signing off on planting plans. You're not signing off on anything. I'm not asking you, I'm saying to you, if you're concerned about being under a time clock for approval, that's fine, and I made a representation to you. You don't have to keep a public hearing open until you have an approval,
Yeah.
or even if you have things in what you consider to be an approvable fashion. It's a misunderstanding of the function of a public hearing. So when I said to you, if you're concerned, which is a reasonable concern, both you and council have stated it, that you're going to be under some time clock, which you are under the village law, then I would represent to you that I would agree to reasonable adjournments. I'm not trying to sandbag anybody here. That's not to my advantage. But I would like to close the public hearing when the function for a public hearing has been met.
Okay, let me be crystal clear, all right? There are a number of items in this memo. Some are very important, and depending on the answer to those questions, probably deserve the ability for the public to comment, and others are minor technical engineering things,
Mark, there
right?
have been 6
So-
public hearings on this project.
And our
there has
questions
been
are still,
one
the
public
questions
comment.
still haven't been answered, all right? So as long as there are significant items that need to be answered, I'm gonna leave the public hearing
Over my
open,
objection.
right? And I'm hoping that you can get us the information that Lisa's outlined in that memo between now and our next meeting,
Well-
and then we can close the public hearing,
And I'm
right?
hoping not to get a 7-page memo on the night of a public hearing again, which if
Okay.
I were a board member, would make me as mad as the applicant.
Anything else before we, anything else? Lisa, anything else? Hey, I'd like to make, yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, there were some recommendations in the memo about pedestrian safety mitigations. I don't know if that's something that the board wants to discuss while we have the design team here. Or if we want to wait
You
for
wanna
a
talk-
revised plan.
you wanna talk about that?
So I'll just highlight what it says, is that, the comments that were made at the last public hearing for this from the applicant and the neighbor were that the cross-access was, unsafe. The cross-access at this point is out of the planning board's decision. So I wanted to highlight that there are engineering solutions that can mitigate the risk of in the parking, including things like raised walkways that will help pedestrians access and can potentially slow down traffic through the parking lot. So I did want to highlight those issues that, I know some of the planning board members were seemed very sympathetic to that argument about safety, and there are engineering elements that we can consider in designing the lot that will help mitigate some of those risks.
When are we going to hear from the experts on this and some of those mitigations and the pros and cons, and even a little more direction, or is it simply from the Board of Trustees? It's non-negotiable, that's it, and if they don't have any other desires or hopes for it, or engineers they've talked to, or anyone that can inform us if we are being
Have you left
tasked
it in your
to make
hands?
the
They made a
decision?
decision.
Yeah, they
They
made
made
the
a decision.
decisions.
No, but they don't
They left it
have-
up
They made
to
a
us
So
to
do we
work
have
out
a
the
budget
details.
to discuss this with engineers, safety engineers, like they do for the traffic, that whoever it is that they are employing? Are we not going to have tools in order to do this, to make a better determination?
Well, you do have engineers in Lisa.
But we
So, but we
don't
don't- we're
have
not-
any documents
So
from
what-
you,
what-
this is.
I would suggest that it's for the applicant to design a
No.
solution. We don't design the applicant's project. They
No,
design
they
their
want the
project.
liability.
And we can then offer comment as to whether this has been effectively, if this is to the specifications of the code, if this can serve as a mitigation measure, if it's functional. But there's a lot of different ways you can engineer or design a project, and, that is really the design professional who's hired by the applicants.
Lisa,
job
I
to
understand
do.
what you're saying, but it is a hot potato, and it has liability, as Mr. Bennett is discussing, and that needs to be addressed. Like, this is who's going to do this and who's going to be responsible for it, and we need to have more information about how that decision can be made safely, and especially before meetings. I mean,
Well,
don't have time to look at anything.
So the issue is that I don't have a cross-access to evaluate. So we haven't been shown one yet. So there's nothing for us to look at.
Okay, well, let me turn my attention to our attorney and ask, the same liability that Mr. Bennett's concerned about, shouldn't we as trustees be concerned about it as well? As we are not engineers, we're not safety engineers, so if we make a decision on what is the best of the worst choices, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm not convinced at all about cross-access, as I voted the last time, Where, who's going to be liable for this?
Maybe the board should, I'm sorry, I interrupted, but maybe the board should talk to the trustees as well. I apologize, Alice, the question was directed to you. Apologies.
So the board has to rely on their experts because you're not an engineer. You're a planning board member and a volunteer. So when an applicant designs something, you turn it over to your experts, your engineers, to tell you whether or not that's safe. That's what you have to rely on.
And our engineers, Lisa, in this case, or not a traffic engineer expert?
H2M is the engineers, and I do have a traffic engineer who can evaluate things, though in this case, I wouldn't say it warrants necessarily traffic engineering. We're talking about we're not talking about traffic counts or traffic street safety. We're talking about the parking lot engineering. But we're reactive in what we're evaluating. So I don't look at the sites in the village and say, you should put this here. I see what the applicants submit. We have a team of engineers. I can have any expert review it, and we'll let you know if there are concerns about the design. But we're not designing the sites on behalf of the applicants or the village.
We're not designing the site. We're not going to design the site. You want cross-access, we're more than happy to provide it, but we're not going to design the site because we think it's a massive liability issue. So if this has to be taken care of in Riverhead, that's where it'll go. But I don't know how you can require an applicant to design something that you're insisting on, when I say you, not you, man, but you're insisting on that we don't think can be made safe, and somehow then incur liability. The neighbor agrees with this. I think probably the better thing to do, perhaps, is to bring the trustees into this discussion. Because you have a direction, as do I, from the trustees, that I have to provide it. I have to provide it. So if that's going to go away, I think the trustees have to weigh in on that. I mean, I can make an application to them for a modification of the approval, but I don't think it would be a fool's errand if I didn't know whether or not, based upon some discussions with them, it would be something that would be acceptable to them. I know the mayor felt very strongly about it. I don't know if he has been briefed about the potential liability issues of it. He's been talked about some of the other comments that the board members have had. I mean, I know Mr. McFarland was very, very clear that he thought it was a bad idea. I'd like to move this project forward. If that's a sticking point, let's try to resolve it as quickly as possible. I'll make myself available, and I would hope that the board would make themselves available to talk to the trustees and to council and everything like this. Let's get this thing done. I mean, yes, it's a great thing for the applicant to have these resort units, but I think it's a great thing for the village to have these workforce housing units, which, by the way, are not going to be typical workforce housing units because the financing for it will not. It's interesting what happens with being involved in workforce housing. It's interesting what happened. You can the guidelines are anywhere. You take the average income from Nassau and Suffolk, and the guidelines say 60% to 130% of that. So most people who are developing workforce housing, where are the funds the most available? Because they're government-backed funds. It's when you're going to do the 60%, 70%, which guess what? That doesn't cover the the couple that one is perhaps a teacher and the other one is perhaps a policeman or something like that, because they're over that 60%. That's not what's going to happen here. We're trying to provide workforce housing for Southampton Village people. So we'd really like to move this forward, and if this is a sticking point, I don't know how I can direct my client to design something that we think is going to create liability. I would implore you, if we could all, through board members, council, professionals, bring this issue up again with the trustees, which, by the way, was not my point when I came in here. I was satisfied with saying, you want cross-access? Fine, tell me where to put it, tell me how you want it. I'll end it at that. But I think I'd like to get past the impasse, so to speak.
Okay. Did you have anything else in the memo you wanted to highlight, just to
No, I
expedite
know, I
this
think what you
process
said is
here?
good.
Okay.
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this, leave the hearing open and adjourn this to August 18th. Second?
Second.
Any second? All in favor?
Aye. Okay, very good.
Thank you. There is nothing on the site plan review. Both the items on there are thank you, scheduled, are adjourned till August 15th. I'd like to move to the pre-application review for East End Holdings.
So just as a reminder to the board, this is something the board sometimes does, is meet with prospective applicants ahead of filing an application at the discretion of the chair to help guide applicants
Yep.
in making an application,
All right,
in this case for
good.
site plan.
Thank you. Yeah,
Sure,
thanks,
the board
Alex.
has agreed to hear.
Yeah, no, we're happy to do this,
Mhm.
right? Hey,
So, I'm John Bennett, the applicant of CMAX Sammy. It's with me, always a pleasure. This is a pre-app to discuss the proposed redevelopment of 3840 and 42 Job's Land. It's 3 lots. We were previously before this board for a lot line modification to reconfigure the 3 existing properties into 3 equal dimensions. This board granted that. We've also been before the Board of Architecture Review and Historic Preservation and received approval to demolish all the existing structures. We would be willing, conditioned upon approval, which the trustees are very happy about, to dedicate this so that it would be public access. We talked about this, which is why effectively it was a 4-lot subdivision, because the 1 lot is 5 feet wide, and it's going to be used for public access from Job's Lane to the parking lot, which I think is a great thing. Unlike the prior iteration of this, the buildings will be no deeper than the 75-foot limitation found within the village code, which is 116.11.3. The rear of the building is going to be a plaza, so that the rear entrance will also appear as a front entrance. And additionally, while it's a very rare thing to be able to do, while the current property has no parking, we're proposing to establish 6 parking spaces within the lot. And our position is that we are grandfathered. We can meet with Chris Talbot, who would be the one who would make that determination. We'll meet with Chris and get something from him for you as we proceed forward in terms of the proper parking calculations. But it's a very rare thing to be able to do on Job's Land, which actually provides some on-street parking. And the reason we're able to do that is because these buildings are now conforming with the code sections which came out of a master plan update. 3 buildings, 3 lots, 3 buildings. The 4th lot being the access, 75 foot in depth, picking up 5 or 6 spaces, 6 parking spaces, one handicap in the back, and having I guess it's a courtyard. Is that what it
It's
is?
a plaza courtyard.
The plaza
Which is
courtyard.
basically in scale slightly larger than the existing courtyard.
Which some people seem to think that has some historic benefit, the existing courtyard. I found that nothing short of foolhardy, even that beginning of that position, sort of a silly position to take. But in any event, we're past that. The buildings are coming down, and we're going to have some courtyard space in the back, which again will be pretty much what space there was in the combined courtyard with that silly fountain around it. In any event, and picking up 6 parking spaces in the back, which again is a very rare thing to be able to do on Job's Lane.
can I ask a question?
Sure.
The 6 parking spots,
Mm-hmm.
can you put that in context of what is back there already? Is that, there's like the existing village parking, and then there's like that little alleyway?
Yes. Yeah.
So
This is to the north of that alleyway?
Yes,
So it's directly behind the buildings?
Exactly. Exactly.
The
Okay.
only way.
So it's basically where everyone else has their dumpsters back there, right?
The only way anybody could provide a parking is if that alleyway did not exist. The only reason we can is because proximity of that alleyway to the circle at the end, which basically is, the alleyway starts right immediately after our lot. So hence, the parking is contiguous with the public parking.
So where that alley hits the traffic circle turnaround at the east end, that's where this is?
Short. Let's get
Do you have a plan that shows that?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
seem like- I think you do, right?
Pardon me?
You have a plan that shows that in
Yes.
context, right?
Yes.
That might be helpful to show the
I mean, I
board.
don't,
Got
let
it.
me see if I have it
And
here.
John, the courtyard, the purpose of the, or what's the intention with the courtyard? Is that public
sorry, Mark,
space?
say again?
The,
It's
what's
not gonna be
the,
public space, but it'll be for patrons.
yeah, so it's just an open space for
Well,
patrons
yeah,
out
because-
behind the stores?
Yeah, because you can
Yeah.
only have 75 feet of depth and
Understood.
conform, which
Yeah,
was
okay.
the last iteration. They wanted to get variances to make it longer.
Is it
And
open
my-
from the parking into the courtyard, or is it closed?
It's open from the parking to the plaza space.
Will it be landscaped and sort
And
of
it will be
people can?
landscaped,
it'll
brick,
look-
permeable brick landscaping. There's going to be 2 planters on either side of it, one containing the septic
Well, that sounds great.
thing. And primarily the reason for this second font, if you may, is because access to the offices are all from the back. Not from the front with Job's Lane. So in a way, the front yard of the offices is the rear of the property.
So if I'm a customer, can I enter the store, or is it possible for me to enter the store from either Job's Lane or the patio?
Correct.
Each would be entrances?
Each would be entrance. However, if you're a customer of the office space, you would have to approach from the rear or from the walkway coming down to the plaza.
So where's the office space?
Second floor of East Street.
I got it. Okay, and then my last question is the alleyway that's there currently. There's a very tiny
There is
alley
no-
there.
There is no
You know,
And Madonia has like a foot and a half on.
If I'm
her
looking
side.
at Ann Madonia's,
Right.
there's a white picket
Yeah, that's
fence
in her property.
there.
It's about a foot and a
That's
half.
her
That's only a foot and a half.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean,
I just
we'd be
need
more than
some
happy.
perspective.
We'd be more than happy if she wants. We would prepare that in the same way as the 5
To
feet,
make
but
it-
I don't want to speak
Correct.
for her.
So
because
are you
that's-
saying 5 going to 6.5, or
Yeah,
you're
Yeah, but again, that's
3.5
total,
and they're
no,
foot
we're
and a half?
5.
Yeah, okay.
So that would be 6.5, but I certainly don't want to speak for her.
Yep, understood.
Because she'd
Okay.
probably
I
want.
mean, it makes sense to, rather than putting a fence up there in that foot and a half, to pave our walkway all the way to the edge of our property, even having a planter.
again,
Yeah, it certainly makes sense to me too, but we don't want to speak for the neighbor.
But that's
Right.
her prerogative.
Yeah.
It's private property.
Yep, okay.
And she does have actually plenty of room on the other side of her property.
at all, or no, about this?
Well, what we have done is given her concerns on the last go-around. The last guy had a 0 lot line, which you can do in the village, a 0 lot line. So what we've done is we've backed it off and put that 5 feet of access there. And then she was concerned about during construction. So the first, I guess, the most easterly half, is it, of the building?
Both foundations for east and west of the building are crawl spaces in proximity of the neighbor. So as far as excavation, we're not going the full height in proximity, immediate proximity
But
to
the
the
middle one will
neighbor's
have a full
property.
basement.
There's a crawl space of 3 feet, and then it drops to a full height basement. So this is basically, it's engineered.
So
To
just
minimize the
Let
impact
me
on
make
her.
sure I understood what you just said. So in effect, underneath that walkway is a crawl space.
No.
Underneath, let me show you a section that would clarify.
We're not digging a full basement up to as far to the east as we could.
So
Now I understand, John. Yeah, okay, I got it.
That's
Thank you.
the way to think about
it.
You can
Gotcha.
Get this on the
Here you go.
camera. There we go. Okay, so the 2 walls that you see here, one is in very close proximity on the west side to the western property, and on the east side, it's 5 feet away from the Donia's property. You can see the basement as a crawl space further away, and this is measured by the angle of a 45-degree angle from that, the Madonia's foundation. And on the west side, even further, 9'10" distance of a crawl space before a full height basement.
I understand now. Yep.
So when you're excavating this basement, you're not in the proximity of the neighbor's
Yeah. Right.
foundations.
Yep. got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because even though the village code allows for a 0 lot line, you sort of have to have a party wall agreement to do that. So
Right.
this just didn't make sense.
Yeah. No, now I understand.
And I think this hopefully will give her comfort that be much less likely to be any disturbance as a result of excavation. She was concerned about that in the last building, so that's part of the design was driven by her concern.
Okay. Any
So Matt,
questions?
Can you
Or-
show the board, was there a plan for refuse enclosure somewhere on the site plan?
Yes.
Could you just point that out for them?
So, on the site plan again, immediately behind the buildings, we have the plaza space, which is lower than the grade elevation of the parking, 3 steps down. We do have a handicap ramp on that 5-foot section that transfers, basically bridges the elevation change. And immediately next to the 5-foot walkway, we have a handicap parking. Then we have an enclosure for both garbage and also behind it the electrical meters, and then 5 parking spots following that.
Bill, any questions?
No.
So what would you like from us?
I mean, we're going to file the actual let us say, go ahead and file the full application.
You know,
This is a pre-application.
I
mean, it's
I
pretty
heard-
much as full
I
as
heard
it
what
is.
happened in the ARB
Huh?
meeting. I heard what happened in the ARB meeting, but that's not our, that's not our purview, but, it looks,
Well, the
I
only
think the view up here, among
Right.
the 3 that are here, is, that sounds like a reasonable plan, right?
The ARB was concerned about the size of some of the windows. We're
Yeah.
lowering them. I think we're going to try to maybe do some part of the building, or maybe the center section of the building, and some brick wash to give
Mhm.
some
Lime
contrast. Lime wash, I'm sorry, to give some contrast. We'll
Yeah.
work with them.
But- but-
There were some concerns. The only public comment was about somebody wanted more than 5 feet of access here. We're not going to do that. And
Yeah.
I think even, not only did Alice, but some of the board members said that's really not the ARB's purview. But, we'll work through it. I think we're gonna try to present, make this a very pleasant building.
Yeah, look, on the walkway, there are lots of alleyways throughout the village. I've actually walked the entire village just to get an idea of the size, and they're all over the map.
They are.
Right, so I think this is fine. 5 feet is plenty.
And every once in a
Yeah.
while, you come into a dead end. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Oh, that looks like we can get to the parking area,
Right.
but.
I mean, when we undertook the village master plan study, Aaron Kranz and X, that was our consultant at that point, to do extensive study of Main Street and Jobs Lane, and from that derived these guidelines. And primarily, it was improving of the connection between the parking spots in the back of the village
Yep.
centers and the main streets and Jobs lanes. And the minimum 5 foot was something that we imposed on a private property.
Yeah.
Obviously, if anybody.
But the reason we made it a
feels-
lot is, the hope is that if everything works out fine and we're approved here, we'll probably dedicate that.
To the village. Yes.
And we couldn't do that unless it was a separate lot. But we went through that all when we did the lot line modification, so.
Understood.
There's no zoning issues left?
It would have to be reviewed by a building inspector, but it would take a look.
The buildings conform in toto.
Mhm.
To the height requirements, we're actually a little bit lower than the height. You can have a 0 lot line in the VB district, so that's not the issue. We don't think we need any more parking because of the grandfathering section. We're adding 6 spaces, but we'll meet with Chris and give you comfort on that. That's his call.
Is there any thought about what type of tenants it'd be? Dry retail, wet retail, any?
Dry,
Office.
at this point, they're all dry retail.
Mhm.
Of course, in the future, when we bring the village sewer, then we have an option of wet or semi-wet
Sure.
retail. But at this point, this is for dry retail.
Is there any contemplation that there might be dining at some point in the back? I guess that would depend on sewer.
That's all dependent
Yeah.
on sewer. At this point, that's not an option.
Right.
Upstairs, we have offices with bathrooms, but again, when sewer comes to this village, if those were to be converted into an apartment, that could be a possibility.
I mean, you could
But at
have some
this point,
transfer development rights, but that's not contemplated right now.
no,
Right.
We're not
Okay.
expecting that.
Alan, you missed a cross-access conversation. I could have used you.
It makes no difference. Come on.
Good
Thank you.
answer.
thank you for coming. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah,
I mean, I think these are helpful. I think it's good that we can do these things, so.
So we're gonna file the application.
On this.
We're gonna file
Can
the
we see the
application.
rendering that you have?
Jump line.
Does any initial thing jump out? And now you haven't reviewed this, but since we're talking informally.
No, I mean, I think that, you know, the functional aspects that always jump out, like, you know, it looks like a lot of it's been well contemplated, the.
Can we put it on the screen?
I think a lot of the functional elements, which, can you hear me?
They're picking up your mic.
I think some of the functional elements I'll have to look at the site plan for, but it sounds like you've already contemplated them, things like the, where the parking goes, having the access for the dumpster enclosure. I'm curious, with I mean, are you contemplating that the alleyway is deeded to the village and the village then determines how it's developed? Is that or are you developing?
Well, we can-
We're
it's gonna be
developing
brick.
it,
Okay.
consistent with the landscaping of the remaining plaza space, which is a permeable brick.
You're not on a mic.
Oh, sorry.
We're developing it consistent with the remaining plaza finishes, and then dedicating it to the village.
But that's a good point. If dedication to the village is contemplated, you want to make sure it's something that the village would accept, the way it's designed. I get it.
Well,
We might loop the highway in if that's helpful.
pretty much in the past 12 years, 15 years, I've built about 5 of the walkways in the village, and so I'm familiar with the brickwork.
So, what did you hear happened at the ARB?
They didn't like the design so much, that was all.
I didn't hear, well,
But like, you know, yeah, I just, from a site plan perspective, I think it's, personally think it's a, you know, full speed ahead. you
we
guys.
heard what they were saying. We're messing around with the fenestration, so.
Yeah, it's, you
That's
know,
fine. They didn't like, they thought some of the windows were too big, so we'll deal with that. And we're gonna try to do some contrast there. We'll figure it
okay.
out.
Alice, on a pre-application review, is there any formal, okay, thank you very much.
So, but do you
Thank
have, do we have to say that we can, they don't have to say, it's not like the town when they have to say, go ahead, you can file?
No.
Okay, we'll just file this
Yeah.
site plan
Okay,
application.
good.
Thanks. Thanks.
On the approval of minutes, since we're missing Hannah and Alan just walked in, I'm going to kick the approval for the last meeting minute approval to our next meeting, all right? Anything else, any other comments from anyone? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to close our meeting tonight. Second, all in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
In tune?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, you
Thanks,
called
Ed.
for a vote to close the meeting
Thanks,
out.
Ed.